Imagine this scenario. You're sitting at your desk and you're talking to people from Japan, South Korea, or Taiwan every single day. They're your students, and one of the most common things they talk about is their weekend. And almost every time, they casually mention how they just got back from a trip to Paris, or a quick food crawl in Vietnam, or a hiking trip somewhere in Europe. They talk about it the same way I would talk about going to the local grocery store. It is just a normal part of their lives. But me? I've never left the Philippines. In fact, I don't even have a passport. That massive gap isn't just about how much money is in my bank account. There is an entire system working behind the scenes that most people never talk about, and it's time we get real about it. I'm Jhonna. This is Jhonna, Unfiltered. Before we dive into the heavy details, here is a quick disclaimer. I am not a government official, a lawyer, or a travel expert. Everything I'm sharing today is based on my own deep dive research and my personal experience living here in the Philippines. Rules change, so for official requirements, please always check with the relevant government offices directly. Now, let's get into the heart of the matter. I want to start with something deeply personal because I think it makes this topic feel much more real than just quoting cold numbers from a screen. I have spent years talking to people from East Asian countries through my work as an online English teacher. Even though we aren't meeting in person, our conversations get very detailed. My Japanese students will talk about their upcoming summer in Europe. My Korean students will show me photos of their recent trips to Southeast Asia. My Taiwanese students casually bring up visiting different countries as if they were just visiting a neighboring province here. And every single time those conversations happen, I notice a pattern. These students aren't necessarily rich. Many of them are regular office workers, university students, or even retirees living on a fixed pension. But they travel. They don't do it because they have millions in the bank. They do it because for them, international travel is genuinely accessible. The cost, when looked at as a percentage of their monthly income, is manageable. The visa process for them is either incredibly simple or completely unnecessary. Most importantly, they generally don't face the same level of exit screening or intense suspicion in their own countries simply for wanting to board an airplane. For Filipinos, the story is heartbreakingly different. And I want to break down exactly why the walls are so high for us. Let's start at the very beginning. Before you can even dream about leaving the country, you need a passport. And in the Philippines, getting that little blue book is already its own mountain to climb. The application fee itself isn't what I would call astronomically high. It's roughly 900 to 1200 pesos depending on whether you want regular or expedited processing. But that number is a trap because it doesn't include the hidden costs. You need to get to a Department of Foreign Affairs office, and if you live in the provinces, that means traveling for hours. You need to pay for transportation. You need to take time off from work. For someone earning around 600 pesos a day at minimum wage, losing even one day of income is a huge blow. When you add up transportation, document fees, photocopies, and the cost of any corrections you might need, you are easily looking at a total of 2,000 to 3,000 pesos, or even more, before you've even seen your passport. And then there is the nightmare of the schedule. The online appointment system is notoriously difficult to navigate. Slots fill up in what feels like seconds. The website can be slow, unresponsive, or just plain broken. If you don't have a high-speed internet connection or a reliable device, you are at a disadvantage before you even start. There have been periods where people had to wait months just to get a single appointment date. This has created a toxic environment where fixers thrive. These are people who charge you extra money just to secure an appointment slot. It isn't legal, but it happens every day because the legitimate system feels so overwhelmed and inaccessible that people feel they have no other choice but to pay. And, of course, paying a fixer means spending even more of your hard-earned money just to begin a process that should be a basic right. Then we have to talk about the documents. You need a Philippine Statistics Authority birth certificate. That sounds simple, but for many Filipinos, especially those born in rural areas decades ago, birth certificates are full of errors or were registered late. Correcting a single misspelled letter in your name or a wrong birth date requires filing a formal petition, waiting months for processing, and paying even more fees. Some people never get these errors resolved, which means they don't have a clean document to present. Even getting valid government-issued IDs is a process that many people haven't been able to finish. So before you've even packed a bag, you've navigated a massive bureaucracy, taken time off work, traveled to a distant office, waited months for a slot, and gathered documents that many people genuinely struggle to get in order. This is the baseline just to get the travel document that people in other countries take for granted. Now, let's assume you finally have your passport. The next wall you hit is what we call passport power. The Philippine passport ranking fluctuates, but it generally sits around the 60th to 70th position globally. Currently, we can travel to about 30 to 40 countries visa-free, and if you include visa on arrival or e-visas, our total access is around 70-plus destinations. That might sound okay until you compare it to our neighbors. A Singaporean passport gives access to over 190 destinations without needing any prior approval. Japan and South Korea are right up there too. By comparison, our passport requires pre-approved visas for over 120 countries. This includes almost all of Europe, North America, and large parts of the world that most people dream of visiting. What this means in real life is that even with your passport in hand, if you want to visit France, the UK, the US, Canada, or Australia, you have to apply for a visa months in advance. And let me tell you, applying for a visa is not cheap, and it certainly isn't simple. A Schengen visa, which you need for most of Europe, costs about €90 in application fees. With the way exchange rates are, that's roughly 7,000 to 8,000 pesos just for the fee. And that's before you pay the service charge at the processing center, which adds another 1,700 pesos or so. On top of that, you have to show a confirmed hotel booking, a return flight, travel insurance, and a bank statement proving you have enough money. You need an employment certificate, leave approval from your boss, and sometimes even a notarized sponsorship letter. A United States visa is even more stressful. It costs around 8,800 pesos just to apply, and there is absolutely no guarantee you'll be approved. The interview itself requires traveling to Manila, which adds even more costs for transportation and hotels if you're coming from the provinces. And here's the part that people often don't want to say out loud. The system tends to favor applicants with stronger financial and employment records. Visa applications are much more likely to be approved when you can demonstrate high financial stability and a stable employment history. This means the people who find it easiest to get visas are the ones who already have money, property, and high-paying jobs. The people who might need that international exposure the most, the ones trying to grow, to learn, and to see the world, are often the ones who face the most resistance. If your bank statement shows a low balance, you're at risk. If you're a freelancer or work in an informal job, proving your income is a nightmare. If you've never traveled before, you have no travel history, which some embassies see as a negative factor. It's a system that rewards those who are already doing well and creates massive friction for those who are still working their way up. But wait, it gets even more intense. Even after you've gotten your passport and successfully secured a visa, you can still be stopped at the airport before you even board your flight. This is called offloading. Bureau of Immigration officers in the Philippines have the authority to prevent a passenger from leaving if they believe the traveler might not be a genuine tourist and could be at risk of being trafficked or working illegally abroad. In theory, this policy exists to protect Filipinos from exploitation. But in practice, many people feel that it can feel like a profiling system for some travelers. Solo female travelers, freelancers, people without traditional office jobs, or those with limited savings can be subjected to incredibly intense questioning. Some people have had their paid-for tickets and hotel bookings completely dismissed and were sent home from the airport in tears. It is a humiliating process for someone who saved up for months and did everything by the book. It reflects a deep tension. Our government encourages us to see the world, but it also operates a mechanism that treats budget travelers with a high level of suspicion. Now, let's go back to the comparison I made earlier. My students in Japan or South Korea generally don't face these barriers. They don't need visas for most of the world. Their currencies are much stronger, so the cost of a trip is a much smaller slice of their monthly pay. They generally don't face the same level of exit screening in their home countries. It is important to remember that Japan and South Korea do have higher average incomes than the Philippines. But the real point is that even if some individuals in those countries are not wealthy, the structural barriers they face are tiny compared to ours. That structural difference is what really matters. It isn't just about how much you earn. It is about how the systems built around your income either open doors or lock them shut. For us, travel requires more than just money. It requires extreme patience, perfect documentation, months of planning, and the courage to face a high chance of rejection at every single stage. For a huge part of our population, that combination is simply out of reach. So, travel becomes something they just watch other people do on social media. It feels possible in theory, but in practice, it is blocked by bureaucracy and a passport that requires so much more work than others. I don't say this to make you feel hopeless. Things are slowly changing. Our passport ranking has actually improved a bit lately, and there are constant talks about making the application process easier for people in the provinces. There is a beautiful community of Filipino budget travelers out there who are finding clever ways to see the world despite these walls. But we have to be honest. For most Filipinos, a passport isn't just a document. It is a proof of capacity. It is a social marker. Getting one, and actually being allowed to use it for fun, involves a level of effort and expense that people in other countries would find absolutely extraordinary. I am still one of those people without a passport, not because I don't want to see the world, but because right now my priorities have to be elsewhere. I think that is a story shared by so many people watching this. Before I go, I really want to hear from you. If you are from the Philippines, have you ever tried to get a passport or a visa? What was your experience like? Did you ever feel that weight of suspicion? And if you are watching from another country, did any of this surprise you? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. I think we need to have this conversation openly and honestly. Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I want to be upfront and share that I use this text-to-speech voice to tell my stories because as a full-time ESL teacher, I have to be very careful with my vocal cords. Managing vocal nodules means I have to save my voice for my students, but I didn't want that to stop me from sharing these unfiltered thoughts with you. I'm Jhonna, and I'm currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers so I can finally monetize this channel and turn this passion into a sustainable part of my future. This is my diary of solo living here in the Philippines, and your support, whether through a comment or a sub, helps me keep this channel growing. If you would like to help out even more, you can check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. My dogs definitely appreciate the love. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. Thank you for being such an important part of this journey. I'm Jhonna, and I will see you in the next one.